Okay, welcome everyone. It's glad to see so many people here today with us for this June update. NSCAS growth. We have a lot of information for you. I'm right at 50 slides right now, so I'm hoping to get through them all relatively quickly so that we have plenty of time for questions. I know you'll have some, and we always appreciate those and any feedback that you have for us. So I'm kind of wondering who has the best tan, but at this point in time, it's hard to tell since we're only so far into the summer. So if you want to come off of, you can turn your videos on or off. It doesn't matter to me either way, but it is good to see some of your faces. So thank you for being here. Today we are going to talk, we're going to start with pilot participation, winter pilot participation guidance. We're going to get into test management some, and then do a little bit with test design and data update, and then let you know when the next information will be coming out after that. So I'll try to get through all of that. As always, you can put questions in the chat as we go along. I probably won't pay a lot of attention to those since I'm trying to get through all that, but then I will take some time at the end to try to answer any and all questions that I can as we go. So, I know I said I was going to have this for you last month. We canceled because I was still on the edge of a decision, getting feedback and everything. It's amazing how fast a month goes. I don't need to tell any of you that because months go by super fast all the time when you're in a school, and that doesn't seem to change ever. It always seems to get faster and faster. So I apologize for not having this to you sooner. It was a tough decision to try to figure out how to manage all of these. So I'll kind of take you through those decision points and everything. Just as a reminder, this coming year, we're going to be partially operational for NSCAS growth. Across the bottom there, you have map growth. We're taking care of that still, grades 3 through 8. It's optional for all districts. If you want to do map growth, you can throughout the whole year. In winter, we have the NSCAS growth pilot for ELA and math. And then required in spring, we have NSCAS growth in ELA and math, and then NSCAS summative for science, right? Once again, a quick reminder, we told you this, I forget which month it was, but earlier in the year, we told you our recommendation for map growth in 21-22 is if your district relies on map growth data for any of the processes, you should plan on giving map growth. I made that because it's a transition year and we're cautious about everything because we're relying on research studies and getting everything as we go forward, as we transition. That being said, we're working really hard to try to make it so if you want to go all in on the NSCAS growth pilot that you can, and maybe not have to test map growth. But this remains our recommendation right now because we don't want to be responsible for messing your processes up in your district. That being said, I'm going to tell you more today about what we can, what we know today, and what we're continue to work on as far as that goes. You know, ultimately, well, so when we talk about the pilot participation, these are some of the things that we're using to make decisions. Like I said, we're working with grades 3 through 8, English, language, arts, and mathematics. What I know, the psychometricians tell me we need a minimum of 5,000 completed assessments for each grade and content area. So each of those 3 through 8 grades, for each content area, we need at least 5,000 students. But we also need representation. It's not just enough to have that in count of 5,000. We need those to be representative of the state. We need special students with IEPs. We need students with 504s. We need English language learners. We need a mix of all genders and races. We need representation to make that data usable in the way that we need to. one thing that I'll mention, because I had some concerns about this from an advisory group, and I did go and meet with Lane to make sure that this remains true, that non-participation will not result in any negative consequences for accountability purposes. So nobody's going to get dinged because they didn't participate in the winter pilot. That being said, it's not going to be all voluntary either. One of the lessons that I've learned from my predecessors, both Pat and Valerie, is that the department has big shoulders and we can take whatever blame you want to throw our way. And so I'll own this one. And if you need to throw me under the bus in your district, you go right ahead. I can take it, at least for a little while. So here it is. So all students are going to participate in a single assessment. They will either participate in ELA or mathematics. NDE is going to assign the assessments. What we will do, because I've been in a district, I know how this works. We're going to make sure that students in the same class have the same assessment for logistical purposes. So in a school, if you have 4th grade students, they'll all take the same test. We won't have half of them do one and half of them do the other. We're going to make sure that we have schools, sister schools, and relationships so we get that representation. But all students are going to participate in a single assessment in the winter. That is, I think, the best way to do it for a number of reasons. And those hopefully will become painfully obvious as we go through the rest of the presentation today. Districts may opt to give both assessments to students. So if you want to participate in both, you're going to be able to do that. And once again, there might be reasons that you want to do that. You're going to be able to get RIT scores from both of those assessments and other data that is map growth like. It will not be perfectly matched to map growth because it's not map growth, it's NSCAS growth. And that you'll understand more as we get into that if you haven't already some of those differences. But what we are committed to is trying to make sure you have the data you need, especially once we get to that fully operational year. But I think you'll see that we've continued to work hard to try to get you the data that you need to make decisions and to fuel the processes that you already have established in your district under map growth as we transition to NSCAS growth. So part of this, and this, I just realized that this kind of gives the like, this is a spoiler slide, I realize, for later on. So participation benefits, right? So once again, we are in this transition phase. Change is tough. I know, I absolutely know that. But this pilot is an important step forward. We need to verify and validate a lot of the information we got this year because of the pandemic and because of the interruptions, because we didn't have full participation even this spring. So we need it. One, it's important because we need the information and the data to validate the results moving forward. So we're going to give this, here's the spoiler, give students and educators and administrators a chance to experience an early version of NSCAS growth assessment and provide feedback on those enhanced interfaces. So as we change things and transition, we're able to get information back for there, right? So there's still research going on. We're still doing these pieces to get the information as we go. And I think this is probably the most important one because it's, about kids and students and kids. They always told me not to use kids, and I try really hard not to do those because they're baby goats, but students, right? So support a more individualized and efficient spring NSCAS growth assessment. So we plan, barring any unforeseen circumstances, we're going to be able to bring the winter pilot information forward to inform spring. So students that have taken that test will have information that informs. Now, they don't have to have that, right? So it's not going to change their score probably overall, but it will make the data that comes back more efficient and may give better information ultimately, but there's no reason why they have to do it, right? So I'm very clear here. Students do not have to take the winter pilot to get a spring score. It won't change their score. It might make it faster to get to that score to have that. And you may get better data back because they have done the winter pilot, but they don't have to do it, right? So the system is built that way purposely. So if we have new students move in, we can still get the proficiency scores we need. But even in this case, going from winter to spring, we anticipate being able to bring student information forward from winter to spring as we move. And so that's a definite benefit as we go, because we'll be better able to see the system as it becomes fully operational as we move forward. And so, change is tough. I don't need to tell any of you that. You live change constantly. We all do in education, and we know the thing about change is that when we decide to do change, we believe, and we have to believe heartily, right, that ultimately the pros are going to outweigh the cons, that the benefits are going to outweigh the struggle of doing that. Otherwise, we wouldn't choose to do it because we know it's tough, right? But we've been working towards this evolution in our assessment system for some time now. And formally, we've been soliciting feedback from you all and others for this transition for quite some time, at least as far back as spring 2019, specifically about some of these test design pieces, but also what do we want out of an assessment system? I don't know about you, but spring 2019 feels like a long time ago, like years and years and years and years and years ago. Like, I don't even I probably had hair back then, at the very least, right? Like we often do, really what we're looking for is how to improve aspects of the system moving forward. So when we're talking about the experience of NSCAS growth, we've been taking that feedback from NSCAS and from MAP growth to try to make the system better. And so we are transitioning to a new platform for NSCAS growth. It will not be on the same platform as MAP growth and NSCAS. And so we're going to give you a preview of that information today. I do not have all the answers or the details that you probably want. I'm going to try to highlight the benefits of that. And that bottom statement on the slide there, as we're still making changes. So this is a relatively recent thing. Otherwise, I probably would have told you about it a long time ago. But we're still making changes. The screenshots are representative of the final experience. They may not be specific to what we're doing, right? So we're still making changes and decisions and all of those things. So a caveat for everything that we're going to show you here as we move forward today. As I talked, as we looked at the feedback about the NSCAS experience, ultimately, as we're trying to evolve the system and trying to make the experience be as interim-like as possible, the decision was to move move NSCAS to this new platform. And we could only do that, we could only be responsive to the feedback that you all have provided for us by making that change. We couldn't do it with the previous platform. We did look hard, NWA and NDE did look hard at, could we do it? Was it possible? Was it possible? Yes. Was it possible and to be responsive to your feedback? Not in the way that we needed to. Right. So we looked at the feedback from the amount of time that you spent creating test sessions. Right. So if I look at the sum of experience and we're doing that 3 times a year, it had to be easier. Right. Because you couldn't do that same thing 3 times a year. It needed to be interim like as much as possible, but still be able to get our summative scores at the end. Right. It was difficult to transfer students. We need more flexible user roles, more streamlined approach to offsite testing, right? So the previous system didn't take into account what current education world looks like, right? External programs, programs in districts and all of those types of things. And all of this platform really allows us to be much more flexible, much more responsive to all of you as we move forward, right? And so kind of get into this a little bit here, right? Once again, I'll apologize for the screenshots. They are early, but we wanted to also give you a feel So students are going to be rostered in similar ways to NSCAS growth and MAP growth going forward. So that's going to feel familiar. But the test administration determines the test windows and the dates. And so once we set that up, one of the great things about this when the student rostering experience is when students are rostered into the system, they're going to be automatically assigned students to the test, right? So you're not going to have to create test sessions in the same way that we've had to in the past. Also, there's the ability to have accommodation information in those rostering files so that when you upload it in cases, if you do that work ahead of time, that you were not going to have to mark accommodations for students and go in and do that. So if you have that information, you don't have to go into each test and mark these accommodations, because if it's in the file, right, you'll be able to upload that in. And so importing rosters, that part is going to be similar. I know whenever I talk about rosters, I can already probably see the questions over in my chat over to the side over here. And you can't see my hand when I do that, but over here in the chat, I probably have people typing questions. So I'll go down to the bottom right. So we can accommodate the current auto rostering processes that districts have for winter. We know we figured that out, how we can accommodate and make that happen. If you're using Clever, if you're using something else, we're going to be able to accommodate to make that happen. We continue to look at all the options as we move forward. With NSCAS growth, we're very cognizant of the fact that many of you appreciate and like your current auto rostering format. We also understand that everybody is going to need an auto rostering format in this 3 times a year type of through year design. So some other things, like I said, the test sessions are going to automatically be created by the information. If you right now, when you upload information for map growth, when you put classes and those types of things, you're going to be able to do that ahead of time so that those classes are going to be, you'll have hierarchical types of things that you can create to make organization and logistics easier in this new system. The in-platform ability to transfer students between districts, and it notifies. So if you know a student is leaving and you know where they're going between districts, not only within a district, but between districts, you're able to transfer that student. I don't know exactly the details of all of it, but I know that somebody can initiate a transfer, and then the other district on the other end will be able to accept that transfer. There's some great things about that. That means if a student has started a test or completed a test, that information is going to go directly to the other district, and they're going to know it automatically based on their profile and the information that goes forward. You're not going to have somebody else touch it. Somebody is from your district, you or somebody else that you designate can initiate a transfer. As long as the people on the other end accept it, that student and all of their information goes automatically to that new place without having to create it again and create duplicate files and all of those types of things. So that's going to be a great thing for students that are mobile as we move through this. Going to continue on here. So just like a lot of programs, right? When you upload information, you're going to get errors and those types of things. They're going to give you information about where those errors are, and you can correct it and re-import it. There's ability to look at an error file in a CSV format and those types of things. And once imported, once again, you're going to be able to assign, those students will be automatically assigned. Accommodations that are in that file will be identified and placed on those with that information as well. So it should simplify that information as long as we have it someplace else to upload into the system, right? Once again, I put several of the screenshots together. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on them because that's not what this is. It's not a training and those types of things. Just trying to give you a preview of these pieces right now. So student registration profile, there's a lot of information that rests with the student if they test at a different campus, if they are in a different program. And so we can take into out of district placements, we can take into account program placements. You'd be able to order the paper pencil or the online if you need that. And like I said, the accommodations are there for, it can be put into the student profile as well. This is another example here of selecting the online paper pencil. You'll see the campus piece there, text to speech and those types of things. Once again, this isn't final. This isn't everything necessarily that's going to be here, but it is some of that information. What we do know is it's more flexible to deal with the actual realities of schools in 2021 as opposed to whenever the other system was designed, right? Proctoring, user roles in this system have additional flexibility. Proctors are not going to verify students into the system, but they will be able to monitor via dashboard. It should in this system should be in some ways more like the old DRC system, but there are better monitoring tools in this one, and lots of ways to do that. Students will be able to be grouped and placed in tests. One of the big things that we heard over and over again is it needs to be like map growth as opposed to NSCAS, and have teachers be able to do more about testing their students and those types of things. We're doing that. Okay, I don't have all the details once again, but proctors, teachers are going to be able to go out, find their students and test them. Okay, it's going to be easier than it was with NSCAS, much more like what you experience currently with map growth. These are screenshots. While you look at the screenshots, because I don't have a lot to say, I'm going to take a drink because my this is more than I talk normally in a day. But actually, that's not true at all. This is about right the same amount actually. Another screenshot of monitoring tests. What I'll tell you is the new platform has lots of different ways to monitor what's going on. So if you're a large district or even a small district, you're going to have different ways that you're able to look information up about who is tested, who has not. And there's a lot more flexibility in testing those students in a makeup situation than there has been in the previous system. So it's a lot easier to go just test the students that are there as opposed to as much movement around all this the test sessions as we've done previously with NSCAS. Once again, don't have all of the details behind all of that, but it is easier and we're working to make it the most logistically easy as we can moving forward. This is an example of some of the icons that are available. This might not be the whole list. It might be a truncated list as we move forward, but it's an example of the icons that are in the system and that we're likely to be using. Here's another Proctor page and the monitoring the progress reports. Like I said, there's a number of different reports that are generated from this system to look about students that have not completed or have completed testing, depending on what you're looking for. We'll have more information as we move forward. And here's some information about those reports. I'll let you read that really quick. So you'll be able to see not only who hasn't tested, but who's transferred out, who's completed, paper pencil orders. There's a lot of different ways that you're going to be able to look at that information to see what is going on, right? Operational reports, who's tested and who hasn't. Logging students into the sessions. So all students are going to have unique logins like we would expect for a secure test. Credentials are available to DACs and proctors via test tickets. There's going to still be test tickets, but proctors are going to have access to those test tickets to be able to print them if that's how you want to do it. You will have access to test tickets, can be configured by role, but what we've been told over and over again is keep this interim-like. And so that's the decisions that we have made. Those are the decisions we've made so far. So proctors have the ability to print test tickets. You don't have to return those to the office. They are secure materials. That does create some security anxiety for me and probably for some of you. But we expect teachers to be professionals all the time. And I think we can expect them to take care of test tickets appropriately. And so we're going to make it easier in that way. Like I said, some of you will like that, some of you will not. but we were trying to do our best as we move forward to adhere to the principles and where we want to go with this system. So the student experience, I didn't bring much up in the student experience because, quite frankly, at this point in time, most of our students are used to testing on a computer. Whether that's NSCAS, whether it's Map Growth, whether it's some other program, the students today are very familiar with online testing and how testing works. They use multiple programs all the time, whether that's an instructional piece or an assessment piece. Students will log into a secure browser application. All the same devices that are currently supported are going to be supported as we move forward. So there's no change there. So if you've bought something previously, we're not going to say, oh, you can't use that now. We're going to continue with what is currently supported. So the new system does run its own diagnostic, and so we believe it's going to be easier to make sure that everything's up and running. There are going to be item samplers, practice tests available. Overall, there's similar tools and formats. What I tell you is overall, we believe that there are better accommodation pieces for students, and those pieces, that was part of the decision in going to this new platform. Is that there was some enhancements there. I'm not going to get into them all today, but there are some enhancements, or at least the same level of tools that were there previously. So really this shift to the new platform helps us move forward to the through-year assessment design, right? If we didn't believe that we needed to do this to get to where we're going, we wouldn't have, because we know that this is, once again, tough. One of the nice things about NSCAS and Map Growth, it was the same platform. We understand that if you're using Map Growth in grades, early grades K2 or 9-10, that you're going to have two platforms now as we continue to move forward. We understand that, but the new system and what we're doing with it kind of required the next level and a more responsive system to our needs. And so we are working on the training plan. I have heard already, and I know whatever we do will not be early enough. I'm pushing them as hard, everybody as hard as we can, to get that material out to you as soon as possible, so that you have it and you can do your training in the ways that make sense to you and your district. We know that December is going to be here before we know it. And so we're trying to make sure that you're ready. One of the additional benefits of doing the winter pilot, right, is you're going to have an opportunity to do this before it comes time for a summative test results to be calculated, right? So one of the reasons that we went down the road of saying all students needed to participate in one test is that every school that has to do NSCAS testing will have done it by the time we get to spring and the required testing, right? And the testing that we have to get scores that we need for reporting. So the other thing is that those participants in the winter pilot are going to be able to give us feedback as we move forward about the reports, about the experience. Some things will be able to change in time for spring. Some things may have to be changed in order to get to that operational year moving forward. So growth and test design, I'm going to go ahead and keep charging forward here. I see that I'm at the kind of the half an hour mark, actually right on it right now. I don't know what number of slide I am on, to tell you the truth. Oh, 29 of 50. So I'm doing pretty good, I think. So we're going to try to get through the rest of the slides and test design. This is a little shorter, it stays pretty high level, right? And we try not to get too much in the weeds here, because this is just kind of the initial announcement of some of this stuff, or the initial look at it. So here we go. The first thing here that I'm going to say is that we're still working towards providing the best of Map Growth and NSCAS summative, right? So that was our original design. We're working hard to make sure that happens. I'm very appreciative to those of you that have served in advisory capacities, whether that's on AAA or our other thought leader group that has been a part of this. They keep me very honest, to be true. They keep pushing me to do the best. Not that I was, I'm not trying to do bad things or anything like that, but they are always asking good questions, always pushing us, and trying to make the best system we can for the students and the educators in the state of Nebraska. So we're still working on this. It's not a done deal. We're at a pilot phase, partially operational year, and working towards it. So key step in a linking study. So this spring we conducted with the test that we finished in spring. A key part of us moving forward was the linking study between NSCAS growth and MAP, or not NSCAS growth, between NSCAS and MAP growth, right? So making sure that we have the statistical information that we need to move forward with everything, and to have that RIT score and provide those longitudinal growth scores that you have come to expect and know. And so we want to make sure we're doing that. I have seen the initial findings from that linking study, and they are promising, to say the least. I was very encouraged about them. I'm going to give you some information about that. And they're essentially, that linking study essentially enables us to continue to move forward in combining the NSCAS item bank and the MAP growth item bank, so that we can do both things as we move forward. Linking study findings. We used match results from this spring to once again do a study. We'd done one previously, but we needed to do more as we're going forward. And so we looked at students that had match results. If a student took MAP growth and the NSCAS phase 1 pilot this spring, we looked at those student scores and how we put that information together to determine that RIT linking as we move forward. Some things that I'll remind you of that I think that it's always important to remind us about measurement, right? And assessment is that any measurement has a range of error, right? If you give the same test on the exact same day, you would likely get a different result within a range, right? And if you do a test and the same test the next day, it's not going to be the same. There's going to be a amount of error around it, and the students, the amount of sleep they got, the breakfast they had, all of those things play into how students do on any given test. And so there is a range of error around that. That's why we often give those ranges, right, of where students are. So if a student took MAP growth and NSCAS phase 1 pilot, they're not going to get the same exact score no matter what, right? It's not going to happen. That would be actually outside of what we would expect to get the same exact score, right? Even if they did it on consecutive days. Assessments are not, these assessments particularly were not designed for the same purpose. One was summative, the other was interim. So there's going to be some differences. The assessments have different designs, right? So MAP growth, it goes off grade, NSCAS goes on grade. So as we're doing a study, there's differences there, and that might have impacts on the study that we're looking at. There's difference in when the assessments were given, right? So in some cases, there was as much as 30 days between one administration and another administration, right? So we hope there was some instruction going on there between those two tests if there was 30 days between the two, right? So we're going to expect students to know different levels of information as they go forward. And there were COVID limitations, right? We know that there were students that didn't test this year. Overall, we tested most of our kids. Some districts decided not to give MAP growth. And so there were less matched than we would have expected typically, but there was still plenty of data there to get good results as we move forward. So all of those caveats aside, right? What did the linking study look like? So I'm going to show you a page out of this. This study is going to be released. You're going to be able to read the whole thing. If you want to, dig into it and get into it, you're more than welcome to do that. It is interesting, and there are some particular findings that I'm going to share with you today to get into all of that. I know this is a lot of data, right? So we looked at every grade level. We looked at the RIT scores that we calculated in the fall. We looked at RIT in spring, and then the recommendations about that linking that we're recommending moving forward. To kind of draw your attention here, Looking at means, right? So the first blue bar under RIT Spring 21, those are map growth results. So if you looked at third grade ELA, the mean for that was 198.98. So those are the mean scores down that column for students across the state in this matched study, this matched linking study. Those are the mean score RIT scores for students in ELA. Actually for reading, so that's the reading score. Okay, so there's a reading score. And then when the last column is when we use the NSCAS ELA test, what the mean score was. So if you look at the mean when they use map growth, 198.98. When we use NSCAS, the phase 1 pilot, the mean was 196.61. You'll see if you go down that column that they are fairly close. Those means are fairly close. You can see the N size, everywhere from 11,000 up to almost 16,700 in third grade. So overall, those scores are relatively same. Not the same, similar to one another and close. We all know that, but when we put everything together and average things, that's likely to happen anyway, and you would expect a linking study based on what we do to do that. That's the expectation. That being said, we still have work to do because there's some cautions actually. And actually some of you have brought this up since we announced we were doing NSCAS growth or the through-year model a long time ago. At this point in time, people ask really good questions about floors and ceilings and those types of things. And that's why I'll go back to the differences between the tests, right? The NSCAS this year did not combine, the phase 1 pilot did not combine map growth and NSCAS items. It was only NSCAS and it was only on grade level, right? And so we would expect there to be some differences. And where are those differences going to be? In the tails, right? And the students in the distribution of students, either at the very low end or the very high end of the RIT scale. And so if you look at the minimum and max RIT scores, you'll see some of this, right? So students that are low did not score as low as they did. Okay, let me put this. Students on NSCAS, the phase 1 pilot, did not score as low as they did on map growth. Students at the high end didn't score as high. Why? Because it doesn't go off grade level, right? So right now, NSCAS does not go off grade level. So there was a floor and a ceiling effect, right? Floor and a ceiling effect for those students. What we also know is moving forward, they're going to be able to go off grade level. But what we need to continue to dig into that information. That's why we need the winter pilot. We need to get ready for the spring so that we can continue to give RIT scores and information. So this wasn't unexpected. Very smart people, some of them in the audience today, asked this exact same question ahead of time, right? Is there going to be a floor and a ceiling effect? Right now, without having those map growth items and without going off grade level, yes, there is a floor and ceiling effect. So if you have really high students and really low students, there's going to be bigger differences if you compare the RIT scores. So when you get the results from NSCAS phase 1 pilot and you compare them, the students in the middle of the distribution are likely to have very close RIT scores, right? If you compare the two, most likely, there's going to be some differences. Students at the ends of the distribution are likely to have bigger differences in those RIT scores. I was just looking at my notes to make sure I told you everything I was supposed to tell you on that slide. This is just one, this is 8th grade, right? So if you look at that minimum RIT score on map growth, 136, 187 on NSCAS, right? The phase 1 pilot, those are pretty big differences, right? Once again, we would expect it because the students that were struggling didn't get to go below grade level. Now, what I'll tell you is that oftentimes NSCAS and the items we have can dig deeper in at grade level. We have a more robust item bank in grade level, so we'll be able to dig deeper in those areas. But once a student gets to the point that they need to go off grade level, there's that kind of a floor effect right now until we merge those two pieces, those two item banks together. Okay, next steps, winter pilot. So provide educators a chance and students a chance to experience this, preparing for spring, still considering the length of the assessment. One of the things that we told you early on is we were committed to keeping it about the same length as map growth, and we're still looking at that, but we are also, because this is a pilot, thinking about testing time. And so how much time does it take? So we're what I'll tell you is this is still in draft phase. Right now, it's shorter than we expect it to be when it's fully operational, right? So the winter pilot is shorter than I expect it to be once we get to the operational test. We are still gathering feedback on test administration and reporting. We're still doing the background research we need. We need to validate the data that we gathered this past spring. As we continue to put the test design together, put those item banks together moving forward. Really, and I'm pushing the teams at both NDE and NWA because people are pushing me, and that's absolutely a good thing. It's an exciting thing, actually. So we are really working. How can we provide the data that you expect for map growth? How can we provide you better data than what you currently get at map growth and give you better grade level information? And how can we how can we still do that and still provide reliable proficiency determinations for accountability? So we have a lot of goals that we're trying to get to. We think we can do it. We think we can make this better system. We have to prove it still. I get that, but we're getting closer all the time. The linking study was a big piece of this. I'm not going to dwell on this one very long, but you can see this is map growth. This was NSCAS summative, and this is NSCAS growth test design. It's meant to do much more than either of them separately, and things that neither of them can do on their own right now. We're not only trying to do what we can for replace map growth for these grade levels, but we're trying to give better than map growth as we move forward as well. And now I lost my mouse. There we go. So just, I think these are important statements, so I put them in here. You know, this really allows measurement goals to be defined at runtime. It's adaptive throughout the test, but it's also adaptive really across administrations in many ways. It's going to maximize efficiencies. Previously, map growth didn't bring scores from previous administrations forward, right? Students started new each time. In the new system, we're going to be able to bring information forward, and that should create some efficiencies, some of which we are only dreaming about still, to be perfectly honest, because we're not there to do and run the simulations yet. We're really working on actionable results tailored to each student, like you've come to expect from map growth. But then how can we also get that grade level, more robust information at grade level? Because we know the research tells us students need access to grade level material, right? And so if we can give better grade level information, we can move students forward more efficiently. We can accelerate their learning. The winter pilot it starts with, right, and this is the current model where we are for the pilot. It's not where we're going to be ending, right? And so as I describe this, keep that in mind. This is where we're doing to get the information we need right now, but we're also we'll be changing things and improving things as we move forward and get to that operational model. So the on-grade items, it's going to start with on-grade items because we have to determine proficiency on grade level. It's going to have 27 items. Those 27 items previously in this part of the test, first of all, previously our NSCAS test had about 40 items in it. This spring we had 23 items. We've increased that to 27, partly so we can get sub-score information for you going forward. The test is going to estimate the student's ability level, right? And then it can refocus the blueprint. It can look at more complex items, including on and off grade levels to challenge students, right? We look at areas of need. Even for proficient student, we might be able to, the plan is to be able to dig in deeper for areas of need, even for students that would ultimately come out as proficient. And both of these tests are going to, parts of the test are combined. Right now, this part of the test is only 13 items, but it uses the information from the previous part of the test to figure out where those items should be. This is likely to get longer, is what I'll tell you. We're trying to maintain a balance between how long the test takes always, right? The more items we get, the better data you get, but we also have to balance that with instruction time and all of those types of things. Once again, a reminder, we're trying to make the test about the same length as what you expect for map growth right now. Okay, because right now I don't hear anybody complaining about the length of map growth because of the data that you get back from that. So this is a little bit shorter, so it's likely to lengthen out because we're trying to give you as much information, but also make it efficient, make it reliable. At some point you get to the point where you don't get a lot of information back, or to get more information, the test has to be a lot longer. So we're trying to hit that sweet spot. The winter pilot doesn't do it, right? The pilot gives us the information we need to continue to move forward in the evolution and development. So these two parts of the test go forward. This is, I should have moved this back a slide probably. This is what the test design looked like for the subscores previously. This spring, those in some areas, those were too low to reliably give subscores. We believe with the 27 items that we can give information going forward to be able to provide those subscores reliably, administration after administration as we move forward. That's the intent of where we are right now. We're going to test that out with those 27 items. We know we can get a good, reliable overall score. We're going to make sure that we can get all of that subscore information as well. Design considerations. I've said that a number of times today, probably don't need to do it again. You know, by the end of the year, we have to have enough evidence to make that proficiency determination. There's some really cool things we're dreaming of and we're going to be able to, I think, do once we get there. But I don't want to tell you about everything until I can actually tell you we can do it, right? So NSCAS growth is going to provide better information on grade level. We talked about that. One thing to note is right now in the current design, when adapting off grade, we prioritize adjacent grades. So if a student is a fourth grade student and they're either at the top or the bottom and it needs to go off grade, right, we are prioritizing the adjacent grade first. So instead of going up a lot, it'll go slow, it'll go more slowly up. But if a student is a rock star and they're going up, they can still keep going more grades up and more grades down if they need to ultimately. And we're trying to make sure that makes part of that is about giving you rich data back as well for teachers, for instructional purposes, all of those types of things. And we're trying to mirror, it's easier in ELA, to be honest, than in math because of the way the ELA standards work. But when possible, we're mirroring the content from the on grade to the off grade levels whenever we can in the blueprint as well. On grade content's prioritized off grade right now. Area support are prioritized over areas of strength. Content, right? So if you look at the content, vocabulary, comprehension, writing skills, content is prioritized based on the percent of the blueprint for each one of those as we move forward. There's a lot more indicators and standards at comprehension than there is at vocabulary and writing skills. When moving off grade, I already said that, so I'm not going to say it again. Content specific criteria is also being considered, right? So the number of questions per passage, when it goes to a new passage, how much information can we get before we have to, move the student off? So we don't want to make students read a passage and only ask one question or two questions. We want to make sure we ask more than that. We have to consider calculator and reference sheet. So as students move off grade levels, we have to consider the implications for all of those things. And so we're thinking about all of those things as we move forward. It's complex, but we have it in mind. We're working on making sure that it works moving forward. Ultimately, we're working for those personalized reports, which are going to include information about the number of items a student gets correct, including, so it's going to give you items correct of easy items, average items, and hard items as we move forward. Going to get predicted achievement level classification, just like you expect from map growth right now. What is the predicted score that students are going to get at the end of the year? So you'll still have that piece. Linked map RIT score. So RIT score is calculated from all the items on the test and designed to be, right, with that linking study, an approximation of what map growth RIT score is. Will it be exact? No, never be exact. Will it be approximate? Yes, and we're pretty confident in that as we move forward. Okay, report update. It's just a couple more slides. I swear it's 44 out of 50, and the last one's a thank you, and there's a Q&A one. So we're almost there. Okay, so report update. So this is the information we gave you on April 22nd about what information you're going to get moving forward from the file, the data file. And so we have an update on that. You'll see bottom of the first column, test percentile is now on that list of things you're going to get. Additional information, we're adding test duration and accommodations and tool usage. That being said, I'm still working on pushing NWA as much as they're not going to come off and say anything bad about me. So I can say that I'm doing this. We're still pushing them because I'm hearing from others that are advising us that we need more information in the winter pilot to be able to make this switch. And so we're still pushing on those things, right? So this is not a final list. This is where we are today. I have meetings still this week about some of these things. We're going to continue to push and continue to work on those things that we have been identified as needs from districts to keep your processes moving forward. As soon as I know about those, I will share that information, okay? And that's actually what the next slide says. I'm really good about telling you what I typed last night at 2 in the morning. So I'm really good at it. Continue to explore what we can provide, right? So we're still working on that. Next steps. So we're still targeting administrator days for lots of information. We have overall summaries. We have a short introductory videos. We have recorded vignettes into specific areas of NSCAS growth. So each of those will dig in deeper than what we've told you so far. And supporting resources in paper format and other formats. So we have lots of information coming down the pipe. I spent most of the morning working on giving feedback to early versions of a lot of these pieces. They're supposed to be out for administrator days. We'll have a better list for you going forward. The last thing I'll say, this is my last note here, is nothing's in stone. There's still things changing, right? I understand that that is problematic in some ways because it makes uncertainty, right? It's also exciting in some ways because we're innovating, we're moving forward. I have a lot of people actually nationally in other states that keep calling me and sending me emails because they're excited about what we're doing. It's easy to be it's not easy to be the guinea pig, and I get that. But I think we are moving in a great direction. I'm more excited than ever because of the linking study, because of the pieces that I see coming together. I know that doesn't assuage all of your concerns, and it shouldn't, because we have to prove it still. We're still working hard every day to try to make that happen. I know you have probably lots of questions, lots of concerns, and I want to get to as many of those as we can in the time that we have. It's just only 5 minutes, which is not great. Okay. Yes, I will be sharing some slides out. We'll send those, and we're doing the recording as well. We'll send both of those pieces out to you when the recordings are ready. So we'll make sure everybody gets that. Bethany, you'll be able to decide how that happens. The information that gets done in the rostering will allow you to figure that out. And as far as like groups of students go, you're going to have a lot of control over those things in schools. And it should be responsive because the district is going to have input into those pieces in a lot of different ways. D asks if students participate in the winter test, will their spring NSCAS be shorter? No. Will it give you better information? Yes. Okay. So it's not going to make that spring test shorter at this point. We're not at a point where we can cut that test off, or that we're going to cut that test back, because each of them is supposed to be an interim experience, right? But when we know we have the information we need, we can get more into the areas of need and give more information back. So a spring test at this point in time is not going to just be shorter, right? They might have less time on grade level items if they're at the top or the bottom. If we have those previous things, it's going to inform that, but it's not going to make the test shorter at this point in time. Yes, a fourth grade class. That is correct. So we're going to look at schools when we're assigning information. So all the fourth graders in one school will take the same test, right? It's this either ELA or math. It won't be all fourth graders across the state take one. It will be all fourth graders in a school take one test, the ELA or math.
I think when you said class, people were thinking classrooms, and
yeah,
class as in all of a certain grade level.
Yeah, in the school. So we'll have some fourth graders that take math, some fourth graders that will take ELA, because we need it. It'll be about half and half, right? So about half the students in the state will take ELA, the other half will take math. Yeah, so it's going to be all students, right? So all 3 through 8th graders are going to take at least one test. Every kid across the state is going to be assigned one of those tests. The only students that would be exempted from that were students that take the alternate test, right? So only 1% of students would be exempted because there is no through year for alternate students, right? So all of your students are going to take at least one test in grades 3 through 8 in the winter pilot. Yeah, so the clever and all of those things will really be the rostering. We'll get in deep on those things, but you're going to have a lot of control over how that works. And so if you're worried about those things, I get that. We'll have answers for you, but you're going to have a lot of control over how that will work, much like you do with map growth right now. Okay. When do districts need to decide? So you don't have to decide anything. We're going to decide, right? So we're going to assign you which students in your schools are going to take which test. You get to decide if they're going to take the other test. And right now, I think you don't have to tell us who that is, or if it is. You just do it, is what I understand right now. If that changes, obviously we'll need to tell you. But right now, you're not going to have to notify us of anything right now. So that will simplify things, I hope. Winter dates are still the beginning of December through mid-January. If that's the date that we've said previously, then yes, Melody, the 1/21/22 would be the date. If that's what we said previously, we haven't moved that. That would be the winter pilot window. I don't know if it's as with the SRS, we might have to do some merging on those files and those types of things. If your SPED information comes from someplace else, a different system, well, we might have to figure out how to put that information together, but it's possible. I know that it is. It's probably some spreadsheet magic that somebody else other than I understands, but we can definitely do it, Nicole, as far as combining information from different systems. Will they have rapid guessing monitoring? We do not now. We're working on it. So that rapid guessing was based on a lot of research, but we are doing those types of things because we know that is a very informative and useful piece moving forward. So we're working on it. It's not going to be ready for the winter pilot. I don't know when it will be ready, but we are working on it. But the rapid guessing information is not there yet. We continue to explore how to give that information, at what level can we give it when we're confident in it, those types of things. We're going to get there obviously a lot faster than map growth did, but that's coming down the pipe. Not tested codes. I don't know about that, Melissa, for not tested codes in the export. We'll have to get into that one. We'll try to get you an answer. Yeah, Lori, that I don't know that. As far as putting NTC codes, will we even need to do NTC codes for the winter pilot? I'm not sure. That's a very good question. I hadn't got that thought through yet, to be honest. We haven't covered that, so we'll have to give that. And so that's an important consideration as we move forward. When do we have to do not tested codes in the new system? We haven't wrestled with that one yet, Lori. That's a really good question.
It was Melissa's fault that I came up with that question. So.
Well, I'll blame Melissa and you then. Okay, great. Will we be able to download data files the next day? The goal is still 72 hours for information, I believe. I don't know if it's the next day or not. But it's right now, the information that I just saw earlier today was 72 hours at this point in time for data coming through. Will there be growth scores for schools? I assume so. We'll get there. Yeah, we eventually, yeah. I wouldn't know why we couldn't. I don't know if we want to, if we, those types of things, but if you're getting that type of information now, then we should be able to ultimately calculate those things as we move forward. Yes, we'll send the, yep. Melody, which fall and spring are you talking about? I don't know which slide that is. Is it all the way at the beginning?
So it's where, Jeremy, it's where you shared the outcome right there, that graph that you showed. You put the boxes around, you showed us the.
Oh, from the linking study?
Yeah. So
yeah, I cut that off because it was long. I forget what it is.
Okay, no worries. Just
if you stick around, I'll tell you. Okay, I'll pull it up.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, we're gonna publish that so you can look at the whole thing and dig into it deeper. Those of you that want to. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. So Nicole, in the past, right? So we've had to report a norm reference test. Going forward, right? So right now we're actually collecting map growth information from that norm reference test, right? And getting those scores for everybody. Yeah, going forward, NSCAS growth will be able to produce those norm reference scores, and that this will serve that purpose, and you won't have to report anything. It'll already be done. Actually, we might even change the law like we did at the high school, where we don't even require it anymore. We took that out of the law at the high school when we moved to the college entrance exam.
Thank you.
ISRs this fall, what would they look like? So the ones that are coming to you now or soon based on the spring results, they are very similar to last year, but they have COVID caveats and don't have as much district averages and state averages and those types of things, because we're encouraging people not to compare scores across those things. So the ISRs look very similar. I think those resources are coming to you very soon about the ISR guide and those types of things. The what's it called? The reports. Yeah, I can't think of the words. Interpretive guide. Yeah, the interpretive guide is coming out soon as well. We have reviewed that, and it should be available as well soon. When do you project NSCAS will allow off-grade testing? The winter pilot, right? The winter pilot off-grade testing is possible for those students starting this winter. No, and Melody, if students can go more than one grade level off grade, right? It won't be capped at that, but the the adjacent grade is going to be prioritized before other grades. So we have some of the controls we're able to do allows us to prioritize that adjacent grade. But students can still go up more than just the one or as well. Can we have the whole winter break? I don't know. NW. So the problem is, so the question is about the winter pilot window. Can you have the whole month of January because of the break and everything? So we've already moved it back. So I'm going to tell you probably not. The reason for that is we need to inform, we need the information from winter to inform spring. And if we give you any more time, we can't get those changes done. So we already moved it back once to allow for some additional time. So part of that's, with the reason why, once again, we went with students are only required to do one of the tests. That was part of that calculation as well. But I don't think we can push it back any longer, but I will go back and ask again because we might have new information that tells us that we can or can't. So I'll look at it again. Yeah, there's going to be a lot. We're going to cover all of this information again in depth at administrator days. So this is just an update to kind of give you information. You can share it with who you want, who you're comfortable with. The information and the resources we're putting out on administrator days are intended for a broad set of audiences. And so if you want to hold this information for your staffs and those types of things till we get to administrator days, that information, it's a different level, and we're really intending that for multiple audience. This was intended to be a DAC update and for you to include those individuals in your district that you want to. And that's up to your district and how you put that information out. This is really not intended for broad audiences. I finished it last night at 2 a.m. So it's not like, it's not polished. Everything's not final. Working on it still. So the administrator days, you're going to be able to one of the summary pieces I'm going to be recording ahead of time and posting. So it's going to be the same thing. I'm just going to have to do it again when I get there. I drew the short straw apparently, and we're in the Holiday Inn and they can't record in the Holiday Inn because the cost of all the equipment would be expensive. So most of the assessment things have to be recorded ahead of time and shared. So they'll be essentially the same things. If you want to come to administrator days and you signed up for virtual, what I tell you is I just show up because nobody's keeping track. I don't think so. If you change your mind, you might want to just do that. If you send me an email, I can forward it on to the person that takes care of all that stuff. And we can let them know if you're worried about it. But in general, I would just show up because nobody's checking people off at the door, I don't think. Thanks, Beth, or thanks, Sharon. I tried to do better at that as I was going. Will we be using reading RIT scores from the winter pilot for IRIP decisions? I don't know yet. It's on my agenda to get into it. Now that we have the linking study, we can make a final decision on that, right? So I just got the linking study. I can't give you a final decision. Right now, we are not listed on the list of approved tests at this point in time. That being said, we have a good linking study that we can make an argument for around that now. So I have to have that meeting and have not had it yet around using third grade scores from the pilot and spring for the Reading Act. And so we will, the answer is to be determined, and we will get that as soon as possible. Winter pilot, NSCAS pilot is the 1st of December through the 21st of January, if we trust the things that got put in chat. And I have no reason not to. Oh, and actually Katrina responded and she confirmed that. When will we have spring scores from spring 21? I don't know what that date is. To be honest, the preliminary information is coming soon to a spreadsheet near you. Look in the DAC emails. If others are on that can answer that question, that would be great. Yeah, yeah, the window's not great for January. I get that. Maggie put in a bunch of dates there for you. Yes, there's going to still be certified facilitators moving forward. We're going to move that program to NSCAS growth. We're working on new trainings and new support in that area. So absolutely, certified facilitators are key to helping us use these results better. So the trainings will be converted from MAP growth to NSCAS growth. We'll still support in MAP growth in those off-grade levels as much as possible. But absolutely, certified facilitators are going to be a big part of helping us make this transition. Lori, to clarify, there will be a new platform for NSCAS growth for proctors and also a new secure browser app for students for NSCAS growth. That is correct. Both of those things are new. How soon will this recording be available? Probably Tuesday next week. It'll be ready later today, but by the time I get people, because of vacations and everything, it probably won't be posted till next week, to be honest. So it's probably Tuesday. Take the weekend off. Bethany, did you find the registration? No? Okay. I'll look for it. Yes, we will send the PowerPoint out.
Darren sent the link in the chat, Jeremy.
Thank you. And Maggie said the spring 21 final file is 8/12, but Maggie, do you have the preliminary file? Because that's much sooner than that. Okay, prelim file is scheduled for 7/8/21. So that is coming down the pipe very quickly. You'll get prelim. Remember, most of the differences are not in scores. They're just cleaning up the file. So it's not like, so student scores are there. If you want to start comparing RIT scores, that's great. I know some of you want to get into that. Remember, those scores at the tails are likely to be further apart than those in the middle of the distribution. We expect that. Okay. I'm over time by a lot. Well, 13 minutes. That's not terrible. What questions do you have that you haven't put in today?
Jeremy, I'm just, with all the new information regarding trying to decide
Everything? Yeah.
if we're going to do MAP growth versus NSCAS, I'm thinking if we're going to have to at least do one subject area of NSCAS, the pilot, then I don't want people flip-flopping platforms, then we might as well do two. But anyways, that window now, when we look at that window, I don't know what other districts have on their winter break, but it's 12 days in December. And that's if you test all the way up, knowing what else goes on in winter.
In classrooms all over the place.
And then
yeah.
when you come back in January, I think somebody else mentioned snow days, but there's also the holiday, and we don't even come back till the 5th. Nobody tests the first day back. I mean, that's another 10 days. I hate to say no way, but yeah, we know it takes us 2 months to get, all these stuff, especially if we're going to have to do MAP growth and NSCAS. I think there's going to have to be some
give someplace.
Wiggle room in January on that.
Okay.
We also have Ames Web coming back in January for 3 through 6 also. Because we do 7-10 MAP in December, and then we come back after Christmas and we do 3-6 Ames and then 3-6 MAP. And that usually takes about into a week of February before all that's wrapped up.
Okay,
We have such high mobility and horrible absent rate that January 21 is not gonna
it's
be
tough.
very
right?
good. Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
I will take it back again and we'll look at those dates again and see if we can expand it.
and the other thing you need to keep in mind is that like all of the reading programs and the math programs have end of semester tests that happened in December as well. So like, and if you're telling us if we need the data from MAP that we have to give that too, that's a lot, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and that is still my recommendation. I'm trying hard to make it so you can not do it if I can, but I get it. Yeah. Okay, we'll take it back. Okay. Other thoughts? Anything else that, thank you for sharing. Absolutely. And telling us your concerns. I want to hear those things. I want to try to be as responsive as we can.
Jeremy, this is Melanie Mueller. Can I ask a question quick?
Absolutely.
Okay, you had mentioned with you're going to be at the Holiday Inn, and then you mentioned that you had to do your recordings prior to the actual presentation. So are those recordings going to be available of the various like segments that you do?
Yeah, they are. Yeah. And actually the current plan for my main section that is kind of an introduction to NSCAS growth that is intended for educators, right? So it's a high level of all of this information we've been doing and not the detailed things that we're going to get into. That one, we're planning on releasing that ahead of time so that I can do a Q&A session that day. So the intention is most of our stuff is going to be available ahead of time
Got it.
as well. So if somebody's asking me if they need to go or not, I would say you don't have to. You're going to be able to get all the information. There might be some differences in the Q&A and those types of things. But generally we're trying to make it so you don't have to be there if that's not convenient or possible or for whatever reason that there might be.
That is very helpful. And when will this study that you said we could read be available or be made available?
I don't have a date right now. I have asked for them to do a final review on it and get it ready for publishing. As soon as it is, we'll put it up and send that out to DAC so that you can dig into it if you want.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Jeremy,
Sorry.
go ahead, Bethany.
I was just gonna say, I know you answered my question about Clever, but I'm still really nervous about that. Right
Absolutely.
now in Clever, we put in all the classes that kids are assigned to. So English, math, science, social studies, all of that, because their teachers might want to access reading and math data, and that's how they get reports. Are we going to have to limit it down just to the ones where kids are going to have to take the test?
I don't think so. I think you're going to be able to do it the same way.
And then how will it know where to assign kids then to take the test?
The teacher has to grab those students to test them.
Okay. So we still,
But they'll be able to do it. They'll be able to search based on those criteria that you put into the system.
okay. And are kids going to be able to just only be in one test session, or is some of that resolved?
I think some of that is resolved, but I don't know for sure. Let me get a better answer for you. Our intention is to make it as easy as possible and as much like map growth as possible to get that done and take a lot of that burden off the central systems.
Jeremy,
Yes.
can we assume that after the administrator days, when there's more information regarding the platform and everything, that the platform will be available?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know what the date is, but I'm actually I'm working on that email now to put all of that information together so that you can give it to your tech people and so they'll have it. Right? I'm working on that.
I was thinking of tech people. They tend to.
Yep. I woke up in the middle of the night the other night and I was like, oh, tech people, I got to get that out now. And so I've asked, and I'm putting an email together that will have ACT, DRC, NWA, and ELPA 21 information. So it's one email with all the tech information from all of those. So you can just share that with them. It will not be as detailed as you want, as early as you want, but I'm working on it to get it to you.
They
but
just still like me right now, and I want to keep it that way.
tell them it's all my fault. Just don't tell them where I live. The
Jeremy,
Q&A, yeah, the Q&A is not, so if you're the Q&A session, I've been thinking about that the last couple of days. I'm going to record it, even if we have to do it with somebody's iPhone or something like that, but you're not going to necessarily be able to ask questions virtually. I can't, that I don't think I can do. I'll see what we can do, but I'll try to record it so we capture the Q&A, but I don't think that session is going to work that way in the way that we thought, that the way that I originally designed it to work. People that are there can participate, obviously, but I don't think it's going to be a live Q&A session for virtual people.
Jeremy?
Yeah.
Do you have another lunch and learn like this planned prior to admin days or no?
I don't right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
And yeah, we're going to be working hard, not only, so working on the resources for reporting for this past year, and then all of these resources that are supposed to be out at that time. And there's going to be a lot of things, details changing probably, but I don't have another session planned. When any of the final pieces for the administrator days are ready and we're ready to release them, we'll release them early as possible. So if you want to get ahead of those pieces, you're going to be able to and start to even share those out as far as that concern. That being said, there's a whole lot of work being done, so I can't promise they're going to be done way ahead of time. But the amazing thing is I already have a draft of my administrator days PowerPoint. Normally that wouldn't happen until probably, July 20 something or other. And I already have a draft of that. But it feels like I have a whole army of people helping me right now and doing great things. So it should be ahead of time.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Beth, the recordings for admin days, it depends on what they are, right? So our assessments videos, we're planning on posting those at our own page, regardless of whether anybody else wants us to. So they'll be available in both places. But I don't know about the actual recordings of when those will be posted. I would imagine that communications would probably post them the day of, I imagine, but I intend to share ours ahead of time. I'm not going to I'm not asking for permission. I'll ask for forgiveness if they don't want me to do that. So other questions? I'm glad Iris is here because I'm very late for an ACT meeting that I was supposed to have. There's nothing important going on over there. It's fine. Anybody else? I know you have millions of questions, but like ones you want to.
Thanks for your time, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I am getting excited. I'll tell you, there's some really cool stuff happening. I know it's scary at the same time. I get that. And figuring out how to do it all, I get that too. We'll do the best we can and support you the best we can. Thank you all. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for letting me see some of your faces so that I could figure out if I was totally off or not.
Jeremy, I had one more quick question.
Sure.
It's kind of along the lines of Bethany's rostering. You showed a couple screenshots of like where you could go in and individually assign the testing site, whatever, or the offsite. Is that something that you envision you could also upload as part of your rostering? It's not going to have to be done individually.
Yeah, I assume so, right? Because it doesn't make any sense to have to go in and do that individually. You can, but I think that's the type of information that should be uploaded, but we'll check on that. So I won't give you a definitive answer because I haven't been in the platform, but Alex and others who have doing a lot of work to try to prep should be able to get us an answer. But I would assume that has to be there because otherwise, how would you do that? It just doesn't make any sense not to. So, but we'll check.
Okay.
Yep. All right, I'm going to stop recording. and stop sharing. I should have done that when we were doing this.